Hey, y'all. So, welcome to the very first episode of When Love Comes. So, my name is April Nowlin. I am a divorce recovery and relationship coach. And this resource is something I've been working on for a few years now. When Love Comes really is a safe space for women of faith, for people of faith, where we can talk about the true journey, the authentic experience of healing after heartbreak. What does dating look like? What do healthy relationships look like? And so I really hope that this podcast just opens up a door for healing and opens up a door for freedom for anyone who hears it. So why did I start this? As a three-time divorcee, yeah, y'all, three times, I went on this year-long healing journey in 2019. And one of the things that I remember God telling me during that time was you need to use your voice. And I didn't know what that looked like almost 5 years ago. And over the course of those years, becoming a certified life coach, working with women who were divorced, widows, working with women who were dating later in life, I really felt like I needed to share some stories from women and men that look like you, maybe have gone through some of the things you've gone through, so that they can inspire you. So I really hope that this podcast does that. So today I am very excited about my guest. We met a couple weeks ago, never met in person. We met through Facebook a couple weeks ago. And I feel like her story, her life really is what When Love Comes is about. You know, we'll talk about her journey of going through heartbreak, what it looked like to heal, what it looked like to be single, and then what it looked like to meet the love of her life, so that she was ready when love found her. And so I'm hoping her story will inspire you, and will encourage you. So Tracy, welcome to When Love Comes.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me.
So, a little bit about Tracy. She is a licensed social worker. She is also the founder of Heartfelt Needs Counseling and Care Center. And so, Tracy, tell us a little bit about how you serve women, what you do.
Well, like you said, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. My practice, I came into practice, my individual practice in 2019. And so what I do, I work with women. I am certified in trauma, grief. I do any type of life transition. I felt like when I came into my own solo practice, I wanted to really niche down in the areas where I feel like I could be of best help. And so that turned out to be women. And through my journey in this, like I said, it's been grief, it's been trauma. I'm now working to become a sex therapist, to be an informed sex therapist, working with betrayal, infidelity, affair recovery, working with singles. I love working with single women who are on a journey of trying to find themselves, how to be saved, single, and successful. So that's some of the areas that I work in. Of course, anxiety, depression, PTSD, but just working with women, being a support, holding space for them as they heal and recover.
Well, I'll tell you, as a single woman, as a woman who's been on a healing journey, we appreciate the work that you are doing. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show is because when we talked, I really appreciated your transparency. I feel like in this space, and particularly in a faith driven space, a lot of times we're not as transparent as we need to be about relationships, about sex, about healing, about divorce, about being single. And so when I talked to you and you shared your story, I was like, yes, people need to hear this. So let's kind of start at the beginning. One of the things I just learned, you guys, is that Tracy has an amazing connection to the date that this podcast is releasing. So Tracy, if you just want to start at the beginning and tell us a little bit about your journey.
Okay. Well, at the beginning, very young, 21, dated my pastor's son for 2 weeks, and our ignorance, maybe I want to say, caused us to get married. We were out on a date a couple of weeks before Valentine's, and he was like, "We should get married on Valentine's," and I was like, "Okay, yeah, sure." And that was my proposal. And so I thought he was playing. I wasn't really serious at that time. But on Valentine's Day, he called me at work and he was like, "Aren't we getting married today?" And I was like, "Oh, you were serious?"
What?
And he was like, "Yes, I was serious." And so I was like, yeah, we're going to get married today. I hang up from him. I call my sister. Hey, I'm going to marry him today. And she was like, what? My sister works at a law firm. She was like, okay, come get me. And we're going to go get mama. And so I go get my sister. I go tell my mom. And of course, everybody's a little shocked. So we scrambled that day. My siblings and I, my sisters, my mom, his mom, to get a wedding thrown together. And so Valentine's Day 2001, I got married. So went into it, just, we were doing some things, even though he was the pastor's son and I'm, leadership in the church, we were sexually active. And so that was part of the reason I think, I was like, well, might as well go ahead and do it. So we did. We were married for 4 years. We tried to love each other, really did not know how. It was a very hard time for me. It was not a good marriage. We were great friends, good friends, but as a couple, we were not. And so during that season, it was really hard, but that season of my life taught me how to pray. I had to lean into God really hard in that season of my life because it was nothing that I expected it to be. That was the first time I think I really began to have my own experience of true depression. Yeah. And so just like we started the marriage is how we ended the marriage. 4 years later, he called me while I was at work and he said, I'm moving to Texas with my mother. And I was like, why would I move to Texas, with you? I've been the one with the solid. My career had started. He was in and out of jobs. And I was like, you know what? Let's just get a divorce. And he was like, okay. And so hung up from him, called my sister. I said, I'm getting a divorce. She was like, okay, go get mama and come down here. Because like I said, she worked at a law firm. Got a divorce, went through that by myself the day that we were supposed to be in the judge's chambers. He did not come. So as I was signing the paperwork, I said in the judge's chambers, signing the paperwork, this does not change anything for me. I will be married. I will be happily married. And that's just it. And so for me, that marriage, I grieved that marriage while I was in the marriage. So the day that I signed the divorce papers, I was good.
It's done.
I had already gone through the grieving process. God took me through in that time of my life when I said I learned how to pray. And it's in my, I wrote a devotion about it, but the closer I got to the Lord in that marriage, the more I knew it was headed toward divorce. And so when that divorce happened, part of me was excited, but another part of me was not so excited because I was just getting into the space. And when you say I'm transparent, very transparent, just getting into the space where I can have sex and be happy about it. I was coming into my own as a woman that's a sexual being and like enjoying myself and, was in that space, but I had to shut all of that down. Yeah. And so during my single season, I had to go into a lifestyle of a lot of self-discipline, a lot of structure, because I do believe that we're not supposed to have, even though I was sexually active, I still believe that was not the right thing to do before he got married. So I had to go in that season, and that took me into a lot of different things because I married young, right? I said I was 21 when I got married. 4 years later, 25, still kind of young. But I'm thinking, okay, I've done part of the work in the marriage. A couple of years in, I'm gonna, do what I need to do, and I'm gonna be married again. But 25 led me to 30 and 30s led me to 40s. And it was just like, God, what is really going on in my life? So at the time, my pastor, she and her husband, she was like, I really can't help you much because I've been married all of my life. And so she was like, I don't know, other than to pray, certain things she could provide. She was like, I just don't know how to help you. So I had to begin to seek out things myself. My friends were single. My close-knit friends, except for a few, were single. And so got on the internet, looked up different singles ministry. There's Natasha and Jamal Miller. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Yeah, I am.
Okay, so I started following their ministry. But the older I got, it was like, because they were married and young, and then they did the one university, and some of those things I did it. I was like, okay. So I fasted, I prayed. You know, a lot of times you hear people say, work on yourself, build yourself up. So I did all that. My career started taking off. I went back to school. I did all the fasting. I did all the inner healing, and I was just aging, right? No men. Well, men was inside. I ain't going to tell that lie, but not men that I would consider, so to speak. And so it got to a point, and you know, some of my frustrations, right, during the singlehood was, you know, people say, put yourself out there. So I struggled with the put yourself out there. What did that look like? Struggle with the get on dating sites, not getting on dating sites. You know, at one point, even my pastor was like, I don't think you should get on a dating site. You know, the Lord know how to let him find you. So it was really a struggle in that space. So that was one of the areas that I was like, do it or not. And then, you know, it's make your list. So I made my list, and my list had 72 things on it. And
good
so
Lord. Good, sweet Jesus. You know, when I hear about someone talking about the list, which we all have the list, right? I just feel like sometimes Jesus is like, girl, that's not even me. Like, I can't even do that 72 items. Like, come on, we got to be realistic. Yeah. So you're in this space of being single. I want to go back just a little bit. So once again, I do not believe in coincidences. I do not believe that the reason why you are the first person on this podcast and that it's launching on Valentine's Day because of your story. I say all the time that God has a sense of humor, and I feel like he's like, haha, isn't this funny? It is funny. But I want to go back to those 2 weeks. So I've had proposals in like 6 months, 9 months, and I thought that was fast, but my Lord, 2 weeks and you were married.
And we were married.
And so
I said I was young, right? You got to count that.
No, I understand. I got married the first time at 20, so I understand. But I think it is interesting how God kind of like it came full circle, right? So you get this call at work, we're getting married, you call your sister, let's go get mama. Then you get this call at work, you are getting divorced, you call your sister, let's go get mama, right? Like this cycle. So you said that you grieved your marriage while you were in it. And I truly believe that a person can do that, because many times when we see a marriage end, it didn't end the day that you signed the papers. It ended quite some time before that. And this is just the finality of it. So you're in this space, you're young, you're 25, probably figuring I'm about to get married again. I'm ready. So take us through a little bit of that season, from that excitement of like, I'm about to get married to the years are ticking by. What are you thinking? What are you doing during that time?
I'm thinking, well, initially it's the excitement, right? Because I'm putting myself in the space. I'm joining these ministries for singles, and they're doing all your Boaz is coming. So the first couple of years, I think it was excitement because, you know, and they're doing, are you the woman that the man would want? The man you want, are you the woman that he wants? So it's all of that work that you're putting into that. And I'm excited, right? Because I know, you know, at that point, you know, I'm on the weight loss journey, fluctuating up and down. So I was in the season of losing weight, right? I was, as I was saying, my career was coming off. Meeting all these other women who are in the same space. So the first couple of years is the excitement, the high, because Boaz is coming, right? And I'm getting myself
right around the corner.
Yeah, I'm getting myself working on my debt, right? Getting my debt paid off, my school loans. So the first couple of years was really good, right? And so in between that time, I probably like the first 5 or 6 years, there was 2 men who came into my life that I gave a couple of months to. So there was some things there that's like, the list. So the 72 things came from, of course, my trauma list, right? What my husband was, I made sure I went, everything he was, the next man was not going to be. So that was part of the list. And then entertaining some other men, what I didn't like about them, that became a part of the list. So there again, first couple of years was doing well. And then, I'm hitting my 30s and life is happening. You're seeing other people getting married, you're seeing children. So here's another thing, because I wanted children. And so I didn't have a baby in that first marriage. I remember one day being at church and there was this beautiful, beautiful little girl that came in. She had to be 4 or 5 years old. And I looked at her and I just became very emotional, because I was like, okay, I can't remember exactly how old I was, but I know I was in my 30s. I want a baby, and so at the end of the ministry time during that service, a prophetic word came to me and said, the Lord hears your heart. You will have a baby, right? You're going to have your own. So tuck that in my heart, still excited, but I started to get frustrated because I came to the point, debt's paid off, right? Career is rocking. I'm healed to the best that I can be, right? As far as coming through the marriage, relationships, the rejection, all the work that I could do, heal, but nothing. So I'm getting a little frustrated, going to the Lord, what's going on? And then, as I said, transparent, I'm a woman and I'm a sexual being, and so I'm dealing with desire. And so in my faith, the way that I practice it, I practice full abstinence, right? I don't now I ain't perfect when I say this. So there was times where I did masturbate, right? But my faith said no masturbation, the way that I wanted to practice. So here I'm struggling with that. And a couple of weeks ago, because I love journals, I keep journals. I went back and I read of something that I wrote, woke up actually the note said 2:18 a.m.
Very specific.
Yes. Woke up heated with desire. And so that Sunday, the preacher had talked about perseverance. And so I was in school. I went back to school. Part of my training was to become a sex therapist. And one of the questions that the professor proposed was, what do you do with horny? And so that night when I woke up horny, I wrote my response of what do you do with horny? And it interrelated with what the pastor preached. I was like, you got to persevere, right? So, so I'm praying, I'm fasting, I'm seeking God. And a lot of times what came at me from family, from some associates is it don't take all of that, because I had to keep my gates clean. What I watched, what I listened to, and so, but that time it was really hard, because that was one of the biggest struggles for me. I'm a big fan of love, a big fan of romance. I want this. And the further I got away from my divorce, the more hope deferred started to kick in. And so one of my closest friends convinced me to go on Tinder, and I went on Tinder, and that was 2014. I can't remember how old I was then. I'm 47, but that was 2014. And I go on Tinder and I meet this man. So let me go back. My list, part of my list was tall, dark, and handsome, right?
I was going to say, what was your ideal? Because we get stuck on this vision, on this, I'm going to call it fantasy in a lot of cases, of what we think is best for us. Now, let me say this. We all have an idea of what we are attracted to. We all have an idea of who looks good to us, and we should have that. So let me make this very clear. You should be attracted to your spouse. So you need some attraction. We need some attraction. So you had this idea of who you thought you wanted, but it didn't quite end up that way.
Right. That was who I was going to get.
Right.
Right. Because even in my dating record, like I had a height preference, right? 6'3". I had a height preference.
The list.
No, we like them tall. And so, let me, so I left something out that's very important in this experience. It got to a point, like when I was saying hope deferred. So my journey, you said, what was it like? It drew me even closer to the Lord, right? The standards that I had for myself, I could not sustain them on my own. So I did spend a lot of time in prayer, church, worship, around people that supported, were on the same path with me. And so at one point, the Lord came to me and he said, you don't know what you want.
Ah,
And he said, can you throw your list away? Will you trust me? And will you throw that list away?
come on.
And I was like, yes, Lord, I trust you. So I threw the list away. So the way that I began to develop my relationship with the Lord in this time, like I talked to him, I was talking to him like he was my friend, right? Because
Yeah.
I had to let him know what was going on. So the more I talked to him that way, the more he began to talk to me about relationships. And it was just very blunt, is all I can say. So one day I heard Holy Spirit and he said, pay attention to the men who approach you,
Mm.
that you would actually give the time of day to. Pay attention to the men that approach you that you would actually really consider. And so I did. I started paying attention to that. And all the men that approached me that I would give the time of day to were white.
Mm.
And so I was like, oh, shoot. Because, like I said, tall, dark, handsome, right?
Right.
I'm like, just, I love a black man. That was where I was at. And then at that time, too, the movie Something New came out. And in that
Oh,
movie, Sanae Latham was me. She wanted the brother,
yeah.
but she ended up with a white man, and I was like, okay, Lord, are you telling me my husband is white? I was like, my husband is white. My husband white. So when I got on the dating sites, I just opened myself up to I'll swipe. If I think a white man is attractive or whatever,
Mhm.
I'll swipe. So I got on Tinder and swiped right on a guy, and he swiped me. And so I had standards, right? So certain things that I wouldn't do. One of the things that I wouldn't do is on the apps after 9 o'clock. If I got anyone trying to talk to me or whatever after 9 o'clock, I didn't respond to the next day. That was
Mhm.
just a standard because, mama teach ain't nothing going on at dark at night, but,
That's right.
right. So I
Nothing
was
good
trying to
happens in the dark.
yeah, nothing good happens. And so, but this particular night, and it was just a what's up, Tracy. And I was like, hmm. And I responded and we talked for about 30 minutes, just on the messenger on
Mhm.
Tinder. And so it was just something about him that stood out to me. And so we talked. Here's another thing. We talked for 2 weeks. Let me go back. Sorry, let me go back. My journey, like I said, I laid my life, not just my life, but my relationship, my desire. I gave it to the Lord.
Mhm.
And my pastor was not one to prophesy about marriage. She didn't prophesy about babies, marriage, those kind of things. And so she was in the pulpit and she's like, y'all know I don't do this. But she said, Tracy, all week I have been going back and forth with the Lord all week. And I
Mm.
just got to say it. And she said, you're going to meet the man in the next 12 months. You're going to meet the man that you're going to marry, but you're not going to get married. And so I just kind of
Woo.
laughed. I was really calm. And then, so probably 2 weeks after that prophetic word, I met David, my husband. We met for face to face for the first time, but we had met on Tinder. So here, the 2 week span that I was talking about, we had talked for about 2 weeks, and he said, "I'm getting ready to get off the app." He said, "But there's something I need to let you know." He said, "I'm never gonna get married again. I just got
Oh,
on
hold
here."
on right there. Hold on right there. So I want to talk a little bit about the transparency in that moment, right? First of all, of your pastor prophesying that, like, okay, you're going to meet the man that you're going to marry in the next 12 months, but you're not going to get married. Like, what goes through your mind in that moment when you hear that?
You want me to be? I'm gonna be real honest.
Be real honest.
Okay, because if you hear it, because I'm very vocal, I can be very dramatic, and most times when I'm receiving a prophetic word from the Lord, I'm just receiving it with everything.
Mhm.
But in that moment, and she said, "Look, you just real calm. I'll give you a word about marriage normally, and you just real calm." And I was real calm because I was like, whatever. Because I had heard, like, I got so many prophetic words about this man, and I was just like, okay, Lord,
Like,
I
whatever.
received it, but whatever, I receive it.
I
It
think we
didn't.
can we can get to that space where when we talk about hope deferred and you
Mhm.
feel
That's
like
the
you've
whole
done
thing.
all the things, right? Like you said, you got yourself together financially. physically you're working on yourself. Your career was in a good place. Emotionally, you're in a good place. And I don't want to say we give up, but you get to that place to where even when God sends a word, you're like, all right,
Mhm.
okay, you know,
Mhm.
almost
Yeah,
like we'll see what happens.
we'll see what happens.
We'll
I'm
see what
telling
happens, God.
Proverbs 13:12 is a serious thing. Hope deferred makes so. And I was getting into that space, even though I was trying to resist it. But I'm aging, right?
Yeah.
And everything is about the young people. And you see all of these young people, they're getting married, and you're seeing, I'm having people that I work with divorce and they married months later, years
Hmm.
later. I had a lady, because I'm the name and claim it, right, and I'm
Right.
decreeing it. And what I left out, like what I didn't have, what I couldn't find for myself as I aged, I began to create. Right, I
Oh,
created a ministry called Naked and Unashamed, and I was having women come to my house. I was setting things up at the church, and I'm praying for other people. And so one day this lady came up to me and she was like, Tracy, this is the year, right? This is the year you're going to get married. And I was like, yes, this is the year. She said, you said that last year.
oh,
Yeah. And so here I'm like, God, you got to mock at me. You got to make them fun of me. I'm just trying to believe your word and hold on to your promises. So in
right.
that moment, to answer your question, I was just like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I wanted to talk about that, because there are so many cases where we'll see someone receive a prophecy and it's just like, yes, I'm going to run with this word. But
Mhm.
in reality, when you get to that place where where you said hope is deferred and your heart is like, whatever, I don't even know if this is going to
Mhm.
happen for me.
Mhm.
So I want to dig into just a little bit too about David saying, I just want to let you know.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like we've had this connection. And I was just on a podcast last night. We were talking about playing the movie before the script is written. And what we were talking about was you meet someone and maybe you have a couple interactions and you're digging this person. So we start playing the movie of, we're going to date for 6 months and he's going to propose and then we're going to get married. We're going to have 2.5 kids and travel the world. And so we developed this fantasy, this movie. But you've got this guy that you finally connected with,
Mhm.
seems like, okay, this could be a promising person. And he says, just want to let you know, I don't ever want to get married. So
Right.
take us
Yeah.
from there.
I'll take it for so for I don't know if we left out. So David, if I didn't say for those, he is not tall, dark, and handsome. He is short, and my height, just a little bit taller, and he's white. But he's handsome. He's beautiful. I say I wanted tall, dark, and handsome. I got short, white, and beautiful.
All right
Right.
now.
But there was just something about him when we talked, like he felt safe out the
Mm,
gate, like out the gate. And I think that was part of why he said, okay, let me tell you, because I think he felt it too. We were just so able to talk about everything. And
yeah.
so he says, I'm never going to get married again. I'm on this out because I'm looking for a really good friend. And so my response to him was, I am getting married again, but I know how to be a really good friend.
Come on.
And so, but I told him I am not a friend with benefits.
There
And
you
so
go.
when we talked, he said he believed me, but he didn't believe me until we began to really believe me until we began to walk it out.
Okay.
And so we did. We became great friends. We would travel, together, do certain things. And so when I say I met him in person, like I spent Thanksgiving with him, didn't know him. We were 2-3 weeks in, and we did Thanksgiving together, 2014. Um, Never, when we did travel, we only would stay like one night, stayed in the same room, never kissed, never done anything. He tried to kiss me one time, and when I stepped back, he said, if anything ever happens between us, it's going to be because you initiated it.
Mm,
And so we did. I mean, we had this relationship. That was 2014. We did this for 6 years. And what would happen, he would date other women. And so when he would date other women, we would stop talking. We would cut all contact. And because I knew I wanted to be married, he knew he wasn't going to be married. We didn't, we had this relationship that was just ours. I didn't meet his children and his family. He didn't meet my family. My kid, I call my sister's kids. I was going to say children. My sister's kids, my kids. He didn't meet them. Nobody. I had a few people that knew about him, but like we just friends. And
Yeah.
so that's really what it was. So because he was honest, and he stuck to it. He stuck to it. And so I had to stick to it. But as I'm sticking to it, I'm falling in love with this man. Right. I
Ooh.
wouldn't acknowledge it.
Mm-hmm.
We did get to the point where we were saying love you because we was friends. But
Right.
here I am. I'm taking this to the Lord too. Who is David? What am I going to do with David? I had a friend saying, "You sure he ain't the one?" I was like, "Nah, it ain't him. He don't never want to get married." And like spiritually, we were so different.
Yeah.
Right. I'm in church 3-4 times a week. He ain't, and he didn't meet, like I said, I was in leadership, right? I'm the on intercessor team, prophetic team. I'm leading the dream team. And he just like, I love the Lord, but I ain't doing all of that. And so we didn't line up at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
I wanna ask you something. You said something that I think is so profound when you met him. You said you felt safe with him.
mhm,
And I think that feeling, we discard that too many times when we're in a relationship, in a new relationship, is I feel like we'll get those feelings of I'm not safe here emotionally, mentally, sometimes physically, and we ignore them.
we
So
ignore
when
it.
you said he made you feel safe, what did that look like to you? What did that feel like to you?
He honored me.
Mhm.
Right. When I established a boundary, there was no kickback. Like I said, I told you I dated some men before, and I say I'm not, I don't have premarital sex. Okay. But we a couple of weeks in and you feel and you push it. He never, when he said something, he did it. Uh when he talked about his life, he was so transparent with me, and that let me become transparent with him. And when I would share things, there was no judgment.
Yeah.
Right. I was coming out of spaces, like I said, where I thought I had done a lot of healing,
Mhm.
but as hope deferred kicked in, right? Remember, I said I
Yeah.
did that work. Some things came back and revisited me:
Yeah.
rejection, insecurities. I have some things that with my health, I have some birth defects. Like some things just came back and revisited me. And he would say things like, "Your soul is so beautiful." It wasn't about my appearance. It wasn't about my looks. He would say these things, not trying to get me to go to bed with him. I could talk to him and he remembered. We did like our 5-year goals, things
Mhm.
together to keep each other accountable. Like he listened, he honored, he was interested in me, he cared about me, right? He any time there was a pain or I was off, because my dad was getting sick during this time and my dad ended up passing away. I had the most intimate moment in my life still to this day with him on the day that we had to do my dad's repass.
Wow.
Right. And I mean, like when I can say he touched my heart without even touching me, just his support, his love, the way he listened, the way he offered himself.
Yeah.
Right. And it was just I didn't have to cover up anything, and I didn't have to
Mhm.
worry about what he thought about me, because he would say it and I believed him. And
Yeah.
then what else made me feel safe with him is when he did date these other women,
Mhm.
he did the pulling back too, right?
Okay.
Because we would say no woman is going to believe you just my friend. So he
Right.
would. Right. And a few times, like I would tell my friends, he going to cheat, he cheating on me because he looking for me and I'm right here. He trying to find me and all these other women, but I ain't there.
If
Right. But
only he knew.
if only he knew. And even part of one of the prophetic words that I got was your husband is a runner, but he's not gonna run from you.
Come
And
on.
so when we finally got doing the talking about being together, he was like, I was running from love,
Yeah.
but I couldn't.
Yeah.
Like, so things like that, it just started falling into place. But I respected how he honored those other relationships, right?
Yeah.
He would not, he would not, he shut me down. Like one time I was so mad because we was just going to look at land, you trying to get property, but he started dating this woman and he ghosted me. He
Oh
was,
man.
but it was because he was a man of integrity. He was a man of
Yeah.
honor. So he respected them enough to say, even though we cool, Tracy, I love you, we friends, but I'm seeing her. So those
Yeah.
things made me feel safe. And he never, like, I never caught him in a lie. He never hesitated. If even when it could hurt my feelings,
Yeah.
he was just so real.
Yeah. No, that says so much about him as a man and you as a woman, meaning that we have to be self-aware, self-assured enough to hear the truth when it hurts, right?
Mhm.
So in those moments where he's saying, "Look, I've got this relationship, romantic relationship, so I'm going to have to distance our friendship because I respect this woman enough." What that tells me is that when you guys got together, he's going to respect
Mhm.
you. So I want to talk about now you've had this 6-year friendship. So now, how do those tables turn where you end up getting married to the man who was never going to get married?
The man was never going to get married. So still through all of this, right, trying to work through hope deferred, talking to the Lord, saying things like, what am I going to do with David when I get married? And the Lord's like, David gonna be okay. So when we come back in, I actually reached out to him because I went into my practice. That was part of my 5-year plan. So I reached out to him on Messenger and I was like, this is our 5 years. This was 2019. I did all the things on my list. And he did a lot of the things on his list, but met this woman and it kind of deterred, right? So that kind of opened the door for us to kind of start talking. He was like, I'm wrapping this relationship up. And so I'll be back kind of thing. So they wrapped it up. We started talking. So we started planning because our dates would be naps. He was a hard worker. I was
Yes.
putting it in at school. So sometimes we would just meet up to take a nap. And so I was
Amen.
like, we need to go on one of our things. And he was like, yeah. And here go me. We should do 2 nights this time
Uh-uh.
instead of one. But I'm still in the space, right? It's just David. He my friend. And so we were planning to meet up, and this was in July 2020. And so I get a call from one of my girlfriends, and she was like, don't do it. Don't go this time. And I was like, no, why? We ain't seen each other. I haven't seen him since 2018, and this is 2020.
Okay.
She was like, no. She was like, girl, I had a vision, and y'all gonna have sex if you go. I was like, girl, no, we've been doing this for 6 years. When we do hug or whatever, I ain't never felt nothing. He ain't never no, we won't. She was like, I'm telling you, you better not go. So I got that in my ear, and I'm sitting down because I'm a journaler, right? And I'm just telling the Lord, you know what? When I do meet my husband, it's not going to be fair to him because I love David. And ain't no man, I'm going to be comparing a man to David. The way we laugh, how he make me feel, this man going to have to work overtime just to beat David, right? This is what I'm thinking.
Right.
And so I was like, you know what? This is my goodbye. I can't keep doing this because I'm just hurting myself. I love him and I'm setting myself up for failure. Probably done missed out on who my husband is because I'm messing with him, right? Because I used to say he might not be the one, but I'm sure gonna have some fun. Like that's what I would say. Just and so in my mind, I'm going to say goodbye. I didn't know in his mind, he's processing, I love her, she's the one.
Wow.
And so we meet, like I said, we did 2 days. And so on that first night, he says, why are we not together? Let's talk about why we're not together. So we go through the list of why we're not together. And so now I love the Lord, and I told y'all, and I know some people may say she a hypocrite, but this is 15 years for me. 15 years.
Girl, that's real life.
Yes. And I'm a woman who is a sexual being, who has desires, who walked in discipline, who sought the Lord, but I am in my feelings, in my flesh. And
Keep
so that night after we did that list, I initiated.
And he had told you if something ever happened between us, it was gonna be on you.
It was going to be on me. And to honor him, right? He tried to put the pause on, and I was just like, look, come on, let's do
What
this.
we doing?
Yeah. So we did that. And like I said, in my mind, I'm saying goodbye. So when I leave him, right, I'm coming down the mountain and I'm crying and I'm like, Lord, you know what? I know I did it and I'm sorry. But you know, like just going in crying. But I love him. Just trying to make an excuse. Now I'm in the guilt, right? Because I done turned up with him. And here we are. And I'm just kind of feeling sorry for myself, right? Letting the guilt, letting the rejection, letting the shame, letting the hopelessness of like, now I probably got to go another 10 years because I done messed up. And here I am, I'm 40, and so just that's how, it transitions. So like I said, I'm saying goodbye, he's saying hello. And so I get a text from him, and the text says, I think it was like 2 days later, you're a therapist. You work with couples and you work in relationships. You don't think you can figure out a way to make us work. And from that text is how we finally said, yes, let's do this. So
Wow.
I said, yeah, I can. And so then on our first official date, he said, I'm going to marry you. And I said, okay, I'm not going to pressure you. You said it. If we're going to get married, we're going to get married. I said, but here's the thing. I'm not waiting 2 years.
Come on.
You're going to marry me. You let me know, but there's a time frame, right? If we're doing this, because we've been doing this for 6 years, right?
Yeah.
And so we became official July 28th, 2020. He proposed to me July 28th, 2021. And we got married April 9th, 2022.
Wow.
So,
what a journey. It's so funny because looking back now, had you known at 25 that David was coming, right? I do believe that God allows us to walk through different seasons, whether it's for development, whether it's to minister to other people, what we're supposed to learn, but he allows us to walk through those seasons and he kept you through that season. So there's something I want to talk about that you shared with me in the space of transparency, right? You talked about the fact that you wanted to have babies and how did that work out for you?
Yeah. So, man, God is very interesting. That's all I can say. So sometimes he deals with you and you don't even know he's dealing with you. So I used to say, if I get to the age of 42 and I haven't had children, I know that I won't, because my parents were older, and like my dad was actually 42. And I don't know how I came up with that number, but I just did. And so when I started approaching my 40s and hit my 42s, I began to pray, Lord, since I'm not going to have children, I know my husband has children. Don't let his children start having children until I'm in the picture. So I have been praying that. And so David and I got together. He has 4 children, wonderful children. They love me. I love them. That's great. So when we got together, they embraced me with open arms. They are just wonderful kids. They're all adults. And what was so special about it, and it is special about it to me, we got together July 2020. The first grandchild was born December 2020. Wilder, my oldest grandson.
God answered your prayer.
He answered my prayer, and he knows me as Nana. I'm Nana. All my grandbabies, my granddaughter is here today. All the grandbabies, none of them came until I was here, and they love Nana, right? And the kids. And something that was so special, his ex-wife, the kid's mother, when David and I became official, I got a message from her. And it was, I don't know what took him so long. You are who our family needed. Like, she was welcoming me to the family. She was saying, my kids are your kids. She even said, your mom is the only living at that time, before my middle grandson came. But at that time, She said your mom would be the only great grandmother to the children. So just things like that. And she's just been the way that she was like, you better get your kids. Like she handled me like I birthed her babies. And
Wow.
it's just beautiful. And even the first Mother's Day with them, like the messages and how they have the babies call Happy Mother's Day, Nana, Happy Birthday, Nana. And it's just God answered it. I don't feel like I missed out, and there is
Yeah.
grief, right? I grieve that. And even, when I was saying I was going through my singleness, part of my anger and frustration was that the body, for me, the church didn't have what I needed, right?
Yeah.
Because I was not single and young, I'm
Yeah.
married and divorced and I'm aging. And there was nothing there that helped me through what I was giving up, what I was sacrificing
Yeah.
as I waited. And so that's why I was like, the Lord and I became very close because one, two, the shame, right? I'm feeling
Yeah.
ashamed because I'm grieving not being able to have kids
Yeah.
when people who have children, their children are dying, they're miscarrying, there's infertility issues, but I didn't get to have kids because I chose the Lord. Right. And
Yeah.
so what do you do with that? I'm angry. I was like, God, I'm trying to serve you, honor you. So that means I could have went out and had sex.
Yeah.
I could have had a baby daddy that wasn't a husband, but that's not
Yeah.
what I felt like would honor the Lord. So in my choice to honor him, I sacrificed, I gave up
Mhm.
um, having my own natural, but, you know, I could be offended. I could be angry. And I did go through a phase where I was,
Yeah.
but God gave me double for my shame is what I believe, right? The way these babies, my youngest two children are twins. I wanted twins, right?
Oh.
My youngest two, the youngest, they're seven twins, right? And
Yeah.
so it's just, and I was even how they protect my daughter-in-laws. They are
Yeah.
very just beautiful, beautiful.
I
And
love
so
it.
I don't, even though I didn't push out, I don't feel like that. There's God has
Yeah.
done so much in my heart and the way they love me, like how I said my husband is safe, the
Yeah.
entire family is safe.
I love it. I
It's
love
just
it.
beautiful. And then like I don't know why I didn't know David wasn't my husband. And I'll say two things and then I know you got to wrap up. Let me say this. Though some of the fleeces, when I said I kind of got flippant with the prophetic words and the things that I asked the Lord, one thing that I asked the Lord, I did a fleece. And I said, my husband is going to draw a picture of me.
Yes.
Our first Christmas together, my gift from David, we took a selfie. The gift that he gave me was a picture. He hand drew and painted the
Wow.
picture of that selfie. So he drew a picture of me.
Yeah.
And so things like I can go when I go back through my journals, I can go back and see where God was showing me all along that David was my husband.
Yeah.
But I believe when we met, neither one of us, if we would have went into a relationship when we first met, we wouldn't have made it. We wouldn't be together.
Right.
God was still doing a work in me. He was doing a work in him. And what God had to work out of me was religion
Come on.
because he did not, like I said, my husband he ain't about religion. Now he's about a relationship with the Lord, but he don't
Right.
do religion, period.
Right.
And so that was one of the things that I struggled with because when we did get together, so here I am. Okay, we're gonna do a devotion because I'm his prayer warrior. So my husband gonna be. So we're gonna do this devotion and we're gonna go to church together. The first time we went to church together, he went to sleep,
Ah!
and I was so mad.
Ah!
I was so mad. But then the Holy Spirit started getting onto me, and he was like, "Watch how this man engages with me." And he was like,
Mm.
"What do you want from him?" Because one of the men that I dated for a little while, he was in church. We prayed together.
Mhm.
He was crazy as all get out,
Come on.
right? But
I was
David,
married to 2 of them. I know.
yes. So, and we went to church. He'd go to sleep. We trying to do devotions together. Oh, I forgot to read. I was so we get married. Before we go to bed at night, we have devotion together. He
Yes.
prays, he reads, he studies. But when the Lord told me to watch him, a couple of weeks later, he came back and he was like, "Baby, on my way to work, I was listening to this minister on the radio. He said this, and he could tell me how he was going to apply it in his life." And so Holy Spirit was like, "Why do you try to force him into a church when he has a
Come on.
relationship with me? Take your
That is
hands
so
off, leave him
profound.
alone, leave him alone." So I did. And now when I say our walk with the Lord together, when I step back, watch as the Lord say, my husband initiates, right? And so just some of the things, I think, even with the list where God said burn the list, because I would have put him in a box that religious says he had to
Yeah.
be. And then what God has helped me to understand, he said, your list was a list full of preferences. You did have
Woo.
some standards. He said, but I need you to understand the difference between a preference and a standard. And if you could not relax and trust me with your preferences, you would have missed a man of quality and standard. And I was like, oh, okay.
That is a whole word for anybody as we are, looking at those lists, writing down those lists, and just a reminder that God knows exactly what we need, want,
Exactly.
desire, exactly the person that is going to meet those needs. And
Mhm.
it's so funny how, it just doesn't turn out to be what we think it is. So,
Nothing. I ain't even his.
right.
I mean, as far as preference and what he looks like and what I thought was, mm-mm.
Nothing.
The
Nothing.
way he loves me and the character and the integrity and the loyalty and the honor, he was worth the 15-year wait.
I love it. I love it. Tracy, thank you so much. Like I said, when we met two weeks ago, I think 2 or 3 weeks
Mhm.
ago, I just knew that this story had to be told. And so as we close today, if there is a woman, a man listening to this podcast and you could give them, one piece of advice or encouragement, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that God knows, right? The Proverbs 13, I just hope deferred makes the heart grow sick, but a promise fulfilled is the tree of life. If God said it, we just got to hold on to it because the word of the Lord will try you,
Yeah.
right? But he is faithful. And where he says above and beyond what you ever asked, thought, or imagined, he's a man of his word. He's a man of his word. And he gives us our heart's desire, but sometimes we don't know exactly what it is. We know, but we don't know how it's supposed to come, how it's going to be shaped, how
Yeah.
it's going to be formed. Trust God. And we always talking about we need to be transparent, we need to be vulnerable. That applies to the Lord. I was
Yes.
sustained, I was kept because I was transparent and I was vulnerable with the Lord.
I love it. And then also, Tracy, if someone wants to connect with you, so they've heard your story, they've watched the podcast, I don't gatekeep y'all. So if I want to make sure you guys know how to connect with Tracy. So if someone wants to connect with you, how can they do that?
They can go my website, heartfeltneeds.com. They can reach me there. My information, my contact information is there. My email address, Tracy Nallery at heartfeltneeds.com. Even my social media handles are on my website. You can get that, heartfeltneeds.com. Or if you look up Heartfelt Needs on Facebook, Instagram, I am there as well.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, Tracy, thank you so much
Yes,
for
ma'am.
sharing with me, for spending time with me. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me, April. I really appreciate it. I hope you have me back.
Oh, absolutely. We have plans for you. I have plans. I have plans. Don't you worry. I have
Yes.
plans. So, all right, y'all. Thank you so much for listening to this very first episode of When Love Comes. Tracy dropped so many nuggets, so you might have to go listen to it a couple times. But
Mhm.
stay tuned for future guests. Like I said, my purpose, my passion is to help you guys to heal from heartbreak, and to prepare for the love that you deserve. So I'll see you guys next time on When Love Comes.